sweeping dictatorship. This is the people's revolution. Tables are turning, your eyes are opening. Welcome to the revolution. People crying out for justice. Some of them crying out for freedom. Everybody crying out for democracy. Now it's time to take a stand. Because this is the revolution. People's revolution.
from the love of liberty in the fires of hope and prayer, with boundless faith in our destiny, we solemnly declare, side by side we stand, highlands of the blue Caribbean Sea, this our native land. We pledge our lives to thee. Here every creed and race find an equal place, and may God bless our nation. Here every creed and race find an equal place, and may God bless our nation.
Almighty God, most beneficial and merciful, Creator of the universe and embodiment of divine wisdom and light, we come before you with thanksgiving and praise. May your will be done in our nation as it is in the heavens. Please bless our political leader, party officials, activists, and all the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Give us the grace to always see good, be good, and do good, and the courage to serve the people. Protect us as we stand against injustice and iniquity, and inspire our endeavors to find the right solutions to the problems that are affecting our fellow citizens. Grant that we may always work together with humility and respect for the greater happiness of all and the honor and glory of our country. Live from the UNC Battleground, this is the Virtual Report, streaming on all platforms.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the UNC Virtual Report. Members of Parliament, Deputy Political Leader, Councillors, those on the live stream in Trinidad and Tobago, in the Caribbean and the UK, all over where UNC name is mentioned, there are supporters. My name is Councillor Ramchandra Ajbal Maraj, and I represent the electoral district of California Point Lisas in the Couva Tabakit Talparo Regional Corporation, one of the better ones. This evening, I'm happy to be here with my UNC sister from the Siparia Regional Corporation, Vice Chair, Alderman Chandra Ramadasing. Together, we will be taking you through tonight's program. First, we must thank Almighty God, as we just did, for being here because of the crime situation in our country. Our first speaker is a brilliant young woman who holds a diploma in computer studies and a BSc degree in environmental and natural resources management and biology. She has been an active member of the UNC for a number of years, having previously served as a councillor and as the chairman of the Murga Tableland constituency executive since 2017. I think that deserves a round of applause. Please welcome to the UNC virtual platform the vibrant, energetic, the MP for Murga Tableland, Ms. Michelle Benjamin.
Out for democracy.
Now it's time to take a stand, yeah.
Come on! Cause this is the revolution, the people's revolution. This is the revolution. I wanna hear everybody sing.
Good night to my honorable political leader. Good night to all the MPs and senators present here tonight. And a special good night to my UNC family, both present here and those locked on every virtual platform. Tonight we are here to discuss the nation's business. And I want to share a few concerns with you. And I would start by telling a story. True, you will know the song, because our Calypsonians have sung our history, and this song is so relevant here today. The sun rises slowly over the hills. By now you know who sang this song. Everywhere is golden sunlight, but still, most nights with sad tales are crowded. Their days with dark clouds are shrouded. They don't smile, and with this government, they never will. The hills of Lavantil were once alive with a song of music, but after years of neglect, only one song is heard. One song, and that is the cry and screams of mothers today. Sadly, we took that member of parliament for that particular area and made him our security minister. Now the mothers of our beloved nation are all crying and screaming. The PNM government are like vultures, for only they get their fill. All we as the citizens get are empty promises from year to year. No running water from year to year, as pipes are always still. In Murga Tableland, we know this all too well. No road repair till election is near. But this fiscal year, Faris, he will work all year round. No food cards till the campaigning mushri starts. Every constituency could attest to this here tonight. Then, as they assume office, everything gets shut down. Echoed by the silence of a loud message every citizen would have heard for the last 7 years. And you know what is that? We already have your vote, so please depart. And you know how they say that? They tell us to buy bicycle and coal pot. How can you take a food card from a single unemployed mother? Can you tell me how can a sitting minister do that? We ask them this question day after day in the nation's parliament. But this government is not bothered. No jobs means every cupboard is always bare and scanty. 10 people live in a one-bedroom shanty, forced to sell on the pavement. No vacancies, no employment. When would they make the link that unemployment influences the crime level? When would this government make that link? Opportunities, well, they always scarce and non-existent with this government. Well, today is a day we can't tell firecracker from gunshots, because blood does run when things get hot. A lie? Afraid to look out my window, because the last thing I might hear or you might hear is Bodo. How many more must die before we awake from our slumber? Men, women, and children living in constant danger. Is that what we signed up for? Just ask the children of Rose Hill Primary School, who only last week had to duck for cover. Is that what parents send in their school for? No. When you send your child to school, you expect them to go and be safe and to come back home safe to you. But Lord help us all. Mothers just hold the head and bawl. But by the grace of Almighty God, you see, these Trinidadian women, we're stronger than a wall, because we have to protect our families from this PNM invasion and dictatorship. We feel it when we go to the groceries. It is not easy to face each day with skeletal opportunities, you know. Yes, like Shadow say, poverty is hell. And every day, the mothers in this country, who are the ones that have to purchase, they get burned. But sadly, the burn from the lying lips of the Prime Minister hurts them more. You know what he said? Because he said the rich have to get richer for the poor to benefit. When would the poor benefit in this country? When will it all end? Is what you may be asking yourself here tonight. But you know when it will end? When we, as a party, as a people of Trinidad and Tobago, will remove this government from office. When we will say enough is enough. How much more? 500 and climbing? That is our brothers, sisters, sons, and daughters. They have to be removed. One night in bed, you're sleeping. Where I am from, this is reality. One night in bed, you're sleeping, as Singing Sandra said. Next night is a wake that you're keeping. You may not have experienced this. You talk to the person the day before, and by the time you reach home, you get a phone call, you're doubting. You tell the person you lie. I don't believe you, I just talked to John. The story of every young man in this country today. Shot and killed, but they died. You know when they died? A long time ago. When they stopped dreaming because of lack of opportunities and stopped believing that their life was worth something. They stopped believing because life became a revolving door of no's and not yet and maybe. This is the cry of mothers in rural communities and hotspot communities because they are bringing up their children in a society that is not catering for them. They cry because this government don't care. A mother's cry. And you know what hurts the most tonight, Trinidad and Tobago? This is a cry that is not being heard by the people, by the women of the PNM. But if I put out a statement, Anita put out a statement, my political leader make a statement, they have the world to say. But they are not hearing the cries of fighting for the vulnerable amongst us. But they always have the most to say about nothing. And you know who are these mothers? These mothers have high portfolio. And some of them are women, single women like myself. They have high portfolio in the cabinet. This is the Minister of Education, Community Development, Housing Development, Social Development. But they are not hearing the cries of the mothers of this nation. They are not hearing the cries of the young men that are asking for an opportunity. They don't want handout and hampers, you know. When they call my office, they want a job. But where do I direct them? How do I direct them? When I am dealing with a Minister of Labor, you know what he said? He's not responsible to find a job for you. That is what he said, you know. He's not responsible. In my constituency, I'm dealing with an unemployment rate of over 3,000. And this is not figures that I pulled out of a hat. This is figures that is reflective of the resumes that would have been received, of the persons that would have put their name on an employment listing, every contractor that comes into the constituency. But this government is not creating opportunities. What they create are lies. I'm still waiting on a farm school that was promised since 2020, but they lost Muruga Tabland. So that farm school, we may never see. Ladies and gentlemen, our young men don't feel that they belong in today's society. The young men in rural community, when they look on at their counterparts, they feel that they are getting less. And the irony is they are being filled with empty promises. They are only good to dance the street when it's time for red and ready. But when it's time Monday morning to go to a job, they are not good. But empty promises are like feeding someone poison. And Trinidad and Tobago have been filled or fed poison for the last 40-something years underneath this PNM, for we have been neglected. But this poison was camouflaged as a plate of good food, or sometimes they print it in the form of a manifesto. When the deception is realized, the damage is already done. That happened to us in 2020. When we realized the deception, the PNM was already elected into office. And now we are faced with a people who are dying slowly because of this PNM government. In many houses, in many homes, support systems are few because we are dealing with what is called generational neglect. We have no support system. This government has pulled the rug from under my constituents in Murga Tabelon. There is a history of neglect of rural areas of the country. When development is discussed and planned, it happens where, or it is executed where the PNM finances dictate. They don't tell us that on the campaign trail that we would get nothing. Lack of development, both infrastructural and economics, are linked to the levels of crime. When would they make this link? Limiting rural constituents access to basic needs and services, as well as opportunities for employment and advancement. These are the reasons our crime levels are so high. A case in point, a flourishing drug and illegal guns trade by predators that prey on our young men and women who they know have been neglected, and they feed on their insecurities and the need to provide for their families. In my constituency, over 10 persons have been murdered so far for the year. However, apart from the drug trade, I am being faced with vehicular theft, supermarkets being robbed, home invasion, and would you believe that they even rob a 60-year-old person selling ice cream to pay his electrical bill? Now, these stories can be found just by a Google search, and these are experience of my constituents. All they are asking for is a job, is an opportunity to eradicate the crime in our area. No, we have protested. We have stand against this wicked administration. Protests would have happened in Siparia, Cedros, Murga, Tabakid, Barapor, Rio Claro, Tableland, Six Company. Every town and village, I believe, would have stand up. These protests were about the absence of waters in our taps, deplorable roads, and landslips destroying our homes, and the dilapidated conditions of our schools. Just last week, I had OSHA closing down the Murga Anglican School as a result of the school being unsafe for my students. And I, as an MP, I am currently donating my Bojeje office for the children to use. And I want to show you a video here today that will reflect my roadways and what my constituents have to bear. This video has an audio, so I will let it play. But this particular village have been neglected. PNM administration for assistance. Go ahead.
Road gave way under the truck, and the truck just stepped No vehicles couldn't pass here. To try to make this possible.
Gas truck does not no longer comes into the community. We do not get water for the school. We do not get basic amenities. The bread van, etc. doesn't come in. It's been very difficult for many villagers.
I had to go to the garden, and this is the road I pass, and I had to stop before and walk over, and know the car can pass. It's Carlo. Try to go jack up right in the road there. So I had to leave the car on the side and walk over.
It will have to close down. It will have nothing to sell in the shop.
What you saw there is what my constituents have to go through, and that is just one street. This exists in Russia Douglas, Barapore, Mantecool, Second Branch, and I have a list of over 76 roads. But tonight, my time is nearing to an end, but I would be back and we will keep communicating. But the answer to this problem is to remove this PNM government and put back Kamla Persad-Bissessar. I thank you.
Revolution, my brothers and sisters, let's all walk together as one. This revolution is about restoring our democracy, and this revolution is about stopping this creeping dictatorship. This is the people's revolution. Revolution. People crying out for justice.
Come on, let's hear it for our MP. She couldn't have said it better. Thank you, MP Michelle. Thank you very much. And our next speaker distinguished herself as a public relations officer of the UNC and as a senator before being elected as an MP for Tabakit in 2020. She holds a law degree from the University of London and is a graduate of the St. Joseph Convent in San Fernando. Please put your hands together and let us welcome the Member of Parliament for Tabakit, Miss Anita Haynes.
Some of them crying out for freedom.
Want freedom. Everybody crying out for democracy.
Now it's time to take a stand. Yeah.
Come on! 'Cause this is the revolution.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A special good evening to my colleagues gathered here tonight. A very special good evening to our political leader, the Honorable Kamla Persad-Bissessar, who continues to lead the charge, the defense of our democracy in Trinidad and Tobago. And of course, a very, very special good evening to those of you gathered here tonight. Those of you tuned in across our various platforms looking on as you do every Monday, every Sunday. It is a true reflection that there are indeed still good people in Trinidad and Tobago determined to take back our country from this wicked PNM administration. Ladies and gentlemen, as I listen to my colleague MP Michelle Benjamin tonight, as I listen to her talk about mothers crying, the state of our nation as we all look on in horror, there is no doubt in my mind that our UNC soldiers now, more than ever, have to stand in defense of Trinidad and Tobago. Indeed, our country is facing an absolute disaster. Over the past few months, the claws of violent crime has reached our children. We have lost children to gun violence in playgrounds. Trinidad and Tobago, think about that. In playgrounds, our children are being lost to gun violence. We have lost a baby, his life snuffed out innocently while being transported by his parents. Imagine that our children, babies, laying down on the floor, traumatized by gun violence, laying flat in a classroom floor, being told to be quiet in order to be safe. That is where we are right now, Trinidad and Tobago. The sounds of the gunshots rattling right outside the school and a Minister of National Security telling us, have no fear, it's 200 meters away. You all saw the video. You all saw the babies on the floor. Their teacher urging them to be quiet. And just a few days ago, you all heard about the murder-suicide that forced another school to close. That's 2 in 1 week. Imagine that crime right now in Trinidad and Tobago is forcing communities to close schools. Schools that are universally understood, education being universally understood as an answer to various societal ills. Our crime in our country is forcing communities to close schools. And can you imagine the impact that this scourge is having on the mental health of the next generation of Trinidadians and Tobagonians? Could you imagine growing up, hearing gunshots outside of your school, laying down on the floor underneath your desk? Can you imagine how you are going to grow up in Trinidad and Tobago and you are wondering where school violence comes from and what is being done. We ask ourselves, what is being done? Today, in the truest form of papi show politics, we saw the Minister of National Security accompanied by an excessive security detail, afraid for himself in the community that he's sending our children to school in. That he went out there to assure persons that indeed it will be safe for you to return to school. But this is one school. Let it not escape us that there are many schools in many communities where these things are taking place. We just happen to see one, but they are happening all over precious Trinidad and Tobago. They are so woefully inept that they would rather move the school out of the community than stand up to the gangs, than stand up for Trinidad and Tobago against gang violence. Removing much needed access to education in a community that faces various socioeconomic ills. And they cannot even think about getting down to the business of solving crime, that they'll say, we'll shut down the school. We will shut down the school because we cannot. They've admitted their failure with respect to crime. So they are surrendering our nation community by community to crime. Community by community, they are surrendering our nation until there will be nothing left. But do you know what is worse than being incapable? Worse than being incapable is being unwilling. Worse than being incapable is being in charge and being unwilling to do anything about it. You listen to Michelle as she counted out the members of the cabinet who ought to be listening to the cries of the mothers. But the members of this cabinet, they cannot be living in Trinidad and Tobago and be so unwilling to solve some of the basic things that are under their remit. The Prime Minister has been very satisfied to say, well, Trinidad and Tobago is a violent place. That means he's given up. TNT is just a violent place. What are you worried about? There must be violence in a violent society. The Minister of National Security is satisfied to say that shootings near a school is an everyday occurrence. So what are you worried for? What are you worried about? This happens every day. And the Minister of Education is satisfied to say nothing at all. Imagine that. Very satisfied to stay silent in the face of this trauma. And we remain trapped in a legislative loophole with no real policy, no proactive measures, no policy decisions coming from an executive elected with a mandate to treat with the problems facing our country. Instead, they tell us what? Legislation, paper politics. Listen, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Criminals are criminals because they don't obey laws. So how is the solution more laws? How is the solution bail amendment? Criminals do not obey laws. We have said it time and time again in the United National Congress that we will always support good legislation, legislation that will benefit the people of Trinidad and Tobago. But that being said, the legislation by definition comes into effect after the crime has been committed. These new laws that they come up with and they tell us, listen, this will be the solution to our crime problem. Everyday headlines prove them wrong. Everyday headlines say you are a liar. When you come to us and you tell us this is the solution, you are lying. 500 plus and counting, it says you are a liar. We have called on the government time and time again to tackle the root causes, the root problems, the root causes of crime. Get into the communities. Don't walk about the community. Don't visit the school and leave them and forget about them. Don't go for your photo op and take your picture and then do nothing. When you're sitting down in cabinet, you're talking about HGC housing, but nothing about the root causes of crime. Get into the schools. Get to the young people before they start going down the road, and not to use them as political pawns or put them in your advertisements, but do the actual work. It has been done before. Crime has been below 500 in this country, 500 murders. Personally, I have raised countless times how to use the education sector in our fight against crime. the introduction of conflict resolution within schools. Let us help young people learn how to de-escalate situations, de-escalate before it gets to a violent space. Let us introduce anger management workshops, extend support to our young citizens to help manage their emotions and their responses to difficult situations. But you know, I can't see a PNM administration including anger management because they need it the most. I've also called for the introduction of things like gender studies, the increased support in social services to make it available in schools. Don't come and tell us time and time again about the all of government approach, and evidently you all don't talk to each other. We don't need new laws to do this. They don't need to come to Parliament to do this. All they need is political will, the ability to do some work, to get up and do some actual work. Unfortunately, we have seen the opposite. And why is that? Because the PNM, at its core, they do not care about the people of Trinidad and Tobago. At their core, they do not care about you. And that is why we are facing the situation that we are in today as a nation now. So rather than implement solutions in our education sector, they have taken away access to opportunities. Our education system has reverted to the haves versus the have-nots. If you have money, you could go. If you don't have, you cannot. Our young people today struggling to access tertiary education, and the government came as a celebration to say, look, we'll give you back what we took away from you 2 years ago. Imagine that. Imagine taking away technical vocational studies, the access to certification, so that if you are not academically inclined, you still had an opportunity, you still had a space to earn a living, a decent wage, to have dignity, the pride of being able to work in this country. They took that away from you. So where would you go? Not the very same gangs? Not the very same space we are now crying out, where's the space for our young people? They have programs for young men, but you took them away in the beginning. And now you're trying to solve a solution that you in the PNM created. Now we are seeing the disastrous results. We are faced with the consequences of 7 years of an incompetent and unwilling PNM administration, and we wonder why things are the way they are now. It is no surprise to anybody who is paying attention. The digital divide threatens even more to make a situation that is already untenable, unlivable in this country. Because students who did not have are now not able to equitably access education. There is a high cost to removing opportunities from our most vulnerable. There is an extremely high cost, and we are now in the beginning stages of paying the price for PNM incompetence. Things like school transportation remains a problem. Across the Tabaquite constituency, children physically cannot get to school. Imagine problems like road infrastructure, physical barriers to getting our children to school. That is where we are in 2022. Imagine that in 2022, when other countries are talking about improving digitization and getting to spaces, we cannot get a road. You saw the video from Michelle. The competition for bad roads in our constituency is amazing. That you physically cannot get from one place to the next, and the PNM still has the audacity to be proud and call this PNM country. No wonder it is collapsing. No wonder it's collapsing. And so today, we have children in St. George's College. You are taking children out of St. George's College because the school is dilapidated and putting them in a space where there are no toilets, there is mold. Imagine that the school that you are putting them into is falling apart. I call on the Minister of Education if she is willing to say anything at this point, whether or not the UTT campus is fit for purpose for St. George's College. How are you going to take them out of a dilapidated building and put them in a worse building after you had 2 years? 2 years of online school to deal with school infrastructure. 2 years you did nothing when the children were home, and now you're putting them in worse buildings. That is where we are in 2022. In the constituency of Tabaquite, we are facing untold problems. The children in the Guaracara region, because of a mudslide, every 2 days they cannot get to school because of a mudslide. The same government that could work over the weekend very quickly to file an injunction against teachers, they could not get up and get to work to find a solution to the mudslide that is facing my community right now. That the children in Caratal, they cannot go to school because of the landslip. And what aggravated the landslip is the work of WASA. And then the Minister of Public Utilities will tell us that the landslip caused the water problem, which then made it a little worse, but they can't do anything about the school right now. Unwilling to solve simple problems. Trinidad and Tobago, let us be clear about one thing. You cannot ask people who are unable to solve small problems to deal with small things. Things like road infrastructure, it doesn't require any major high-level thinking, right? It just requires political will and determination. Things like transportation, it does not require any genius-level thinking, and they can't get that right. You cannot expect people who cannot solve small problems to solve big problems. You cannot do that. We are walking a dangerous line, Trinidad and Tobago, an exceptionally dangerous line, that every aspect of our society could be crumbling bit by bit. That we are talking about an education sector, in the meanwhile our communities are being cut out for basic needs. So I say to you tonight, Trinidad and Tobago, it is time for us to stand up for ourselves. The only way our country will get better is to remove this PNM administration. They are the cause of the problem. They cannot be the solution. And so we stand here together, united under one cause, for a better Trinidad and Tobago tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Start turning, your eyes are opening. Welcome to the revolution. People crying out for justice.
Some of them crying out for freedom.
Want freedom. Everybody crying out for democracy.
Thank you, MP Anita. Let's give it up for her, ladies and gentlemen. An MP with vision. This is a party of hope. This is the only party could bring back this government, this country as it was before, a beautiful rainbow country. I just want to let you know very quickly some of the things we have to credit the PNM for. The PNM must be credited for the highest border toll by year end. They must be credited for the highest cost of living ever, highest unemployment rate, most deplorable roads ever since in the history of this country. And I'm not saying that. My grandmother and my grandfather, who was here many years, attesting to that. The sum total of this beautiful rainbow country, Trinidad and Tobago, is now a country is known of murder and mayhem. A shame and disgrace to the PNM. That is what there is credit for. Let's give the PNM a round of applause for that. Yes, and this is what we are doing. We are going down a road of hopelessness, but the UNC will bring back that hope, ladies and gentlemen. Our next speaker, no stranger. It gives me great pleasure to bring to the platform a man of fierce loyalty to our party. He is one of the most accomplished sportsmen in the country, a man of national and international repute, and as such, a staunch advocate for youth development. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming to the UNC virtual platform, Savita David.
To take a stand, yeah.
Come on! Cause this is the revolution. People's revolution. This is the revolution. I wanna hear everybody sing freedom. Everybody sing freedom. Man and woman sing freedom. Everybody sing freedom.
UNC family, too quiet. Too quiet. Too quiet. In the name of God, the most gracious, the especially merciful. Brothers and sisters, first of all, I'd like to, on behalf of our honorable political leader, extend the warmest congratulations to Dylan Carter on his fantastic individual achievement. And also, as we are in the Southland, to what we call the Saints of the South, St. Benedict's, in winning the National And I forgot who they beat again? Who St. Benedict's beat? Fatima? Fatima? Oh, the college is really gone quiet now? You playing against girls now? Oh, Fatima? Really, we congratulate all the schools, and that is a perfect segue into where I want to go. I observed some of these games, and it was glaring to me, the sense of community at those games. Because that's what schools are. Schools essentially are community. And schools essentially form an integral part of what we call community in Trinidad and Tobago. You all agree with me? What also forms an essential part of community is culture. I give the example of what is so important to the national community right now. In Lavantil, we have Desperados in Desperately Crescent, where they had their panyard, which is now gone. Stick a pin. When you have places of worship, churches, mosques, mandirs, temples, when they are no longer safe spaces in a community, what does that tell you? When you have sporting fields that people cannot go and play football or cricket, what does that tell you about that community? It tells you that that community is finished. So we have to ask ourselves, when we notice Lavantil and what has happened in the last years, especially under this PNM government, we see that community is slowly being decimated, especially in Lavantil. We have to ask ourselves, why? If you move schools, you move culture, you move sports within a community, what essentially you have done? You have moved community. You have moved people away from that community. And we have to ask ourselves, what is happening in Lavantil, where McDonald Jacobs, Minister of Security, National Fitzgerald Haynes, they cannot seem to find anybody or any of the gangs that they talk about. How come all of a sudden Fitzgerald Haynes can go into Lavantil, go into Rose Hill with a whole gang himself and cannot find the gangs that move in? And I'll tell you why. And why do I speak about Lavantil all the time and my passion? Because I feel that Lavantil is basically a litmus test for the national community. I feel Lavantil is that litmus test that the PNM has left a legacy of failure. And I'll get it even more personal. That same Rose Hill school that we hear people talking about, and we justifiably so, my mother went to that school. Rita Harris Naked went to Rose Hill School before my grandfather took her out and put her in Sacred Hearts. Rudolph Charles, the person that everyone talks about from Lavantil, the Hammer, my uncle, went to Rose Hill. And so did Uncle Jerry Waldron. I'm calling names of people who are famous in Lavantil as desperados. Uncle Kenneth Charles went to Rose Hill School. So that is personal to me when I saw that video of those children, their faces pressed on the ground. I'm not coming and talk to you something I don't know. My family went to that school. My family formed part of that community. You feel that shipping is going on about gangs shooting from Richardson Lane and one gang shooting from Lassick Trace up. You feel that shipping is going to go on if the Hammer was still here? If the Hammer will have fixed that with a hammer, Fitzgerald Haynes and them with all the guns, they can't fix it. They don't want to fix it. And I'll tell you why. As a government destroys schools, it's not just the infrastructure you're talking about. You're talking about students, their families. You're talking about somebody who know his brother get killed at some point in time. Somebody who know that his friend, his neighbor, his daughter, his son get killed. How many communities could bear that trauma? All those children that you see there lying down, face down in the ground, you know what is the result of that? Or what will be the result of that? My friend, play the tape of what we saw there in Tranquility. That is the daughter of the former president, former Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, A.N.R. Robertson. That is his daughter, principal of Tranquility School. Went to break up a fight in Tranquility, and that is on the ground. So those children that you all see traumatized on the ground there, and everybody bawling, oh God, look how I'm feeling sorry for them. That is what happens when they reach a high school. That is the behavior displayed. So this is not something you just gloss over, and next week we talk about something else. This is where they end up. This is where those children that we allow this PNM government to bury their noses, faces in the ground. You think I'm going on to talk about Fishery Alliance again? Everybody in the country knows how incompetent, how uncaring Fishery Alliance has no idea about how to deal with national security. This is our concern. This is the concern of Kamla Persad-Bissessar and the UNC. What we're going to do to make sure that those children with their faces down on the ground don't reach to that. That when they reach to that level, they don't even respect a principal of a school, the daughter of a former president and prime minister. And I heard MP Anita Haynes say something. Long time in school, you could be fighting how much you want. As you hear principal coming, what you do? Everybody stand up against the wall, shit. No. Shit. The daughter, the principal of that school, down on the ground. That is the level of respect. Why? Don't let them come and tell you the parents at fault, this at fault, this at... It started from where a minister of national security, intellectually poor, morally vacuous, a total imbecile could come and tell you that they're 200 meters away from the school. It happening every day. You hear the school guard talk about it. It happening every day. That is what they have normalized, because this is a PNM government that has normalized mediocrity. They have normalized incompetence. They have normalized breaching the Constitution. This is a criminal enterprise. Rowley sitting back. You think Rowley care? You know why? If you destroy communities, if your purpose is to eliminate culture, sports, schools, churches, places of worship, if that is your objective, you know what you're telling people? Leave the community. And that is what I am telling the nation of Trinidad and Tobago today, the people of Trinidad and Tobago. This is a part of a PNM master plan to completely remove the Lavantillians, the residents of Lavantil, from that area and give it over to the 1% of PNM. I'm telling you, this is their objective. There is no way that you can tell me that a government, with giving you all the resources, we have all kind of defense force, we have police. You're telling me they can't come now and lock down gangs, protect schools, protect playgrounds? No. And I tell you all, use Lavantil. Why? Lavantil is a microcosm of other communities on the East-West Corridor. And I've said it many times. Fix East-West Corridor, you fix Trinidad and Tobago. Fix the East-West Corridor, you fix Trinidad and Tobago. But PNM not interested. They want that real estate in Lavantil. And I hear that from my uncles many times. Many times. And it's clear. It's clear. Because I said it before, albeit with a little more spicy language. If those were different people on that ground, bet your bottom dollar that problem in Lavantil fixed one time. I say no more. You know, I was watching this, and the PNM remind me of Western powers, specifically like Belgium, and I like to go international with the comparisons. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, every time you hear they discover gold or cobalt, you know, the richest country in the world is the DRC. The richest country by all estimates, by all metrics, richest country in the world. But every time they discover cobalt or uranium somewhere, all of a sudden you hear that area have what? Ebola. Everybody had to move out all of a sudden. You know what? So who is the political version of Ebola? PNM. That is the PNM is a political version of Ebola. They always had to move out somebody. You telling me something wrong with us, have problems in our school, move out. You have problems in our barnyard, move out. You have problems in our sporting grounds, move out. So what people paying you money for? To protect who? Rowley and Stuart Young? It's a shame, people. I mean, it's so laughable that we have to put up with this government. It has reached to the point where everybody feels in Trinidad that is virtually every man and woman for themselves. What do you all think about that? Where our taxpayers, and let me tell you what, Laventille people are taxpayers too, eh? Don't forget that. They deserve proper representation, whether or not they're voting for PNM. That is not the point. That is not UNC. UNC, we care about every single citizen. Whether you vote for us or you don't vote for us. So, I say to my brothers and sisters, given that we have seen our people traumatized by a corrupt, insensitive government like this PNM, and Haynes, who came today, and this is my last contribution about this particular gentleman. He proclaimed today that he was a child of Laventille. After I spoke with my uncles, I would like to say, Haynes, you may have been a child of Laventille, but you are no Laventille man. You are confirmed PNM jackass. So the PNM continues to institute among all peoples of all communities a sense of dependency. It's very easy for them because it's a whole criminal cycle for them. You know, the PNM not interested in diversifying the economy. They're about diversifying crime. That is all they're good in. So they'll give you a model. For example, they want to vote apart because they're only interested in power. So here what they'll do. Say, we have too much crime here. Move people out, put them in touch roads. Why touch roads? Green space, a place where everybody could congregate, a place where everybody could feel safe, they could breathe. You want to come and put HGC units there. And here what you do? Typical PNM, you throw the race card. You get talking heads to talk about, oh, fear of a black planet. I hear some fella, one of the talking heads from Cascade, and I'll call them out because we need to call these people out because they are inhibiting, they are protecting, they are facilitating this government called the PNM. So this George Elias fella, I see a long diatribe about fear of a black planet and people in San Fernando shouldn't be afraid of black. I say, well, must we have no black people living in San Fernando? Something I pass something, I don't know. I know black. All I know is that you're taking a space which is already saturated. You have a green space where people could come, plant, play sports, walk around, like Mandela Park. And you want to bring 500 units, or how many units you want, in order to vote apart. And the whole country knows it. But you feel that you could engage in that level of political criminality because you have normalized that. And we come back to that again. We come back to how comfortable Rowley and this band of incompetents feel that they could breach the Constitution as regards the meritless, how they could enter into an indemnity agreement with Vincent Nelson, a political prostitute, and then feel comfortable to still come and tell you, using their talking heads, that Ananram Logan and Gerald Ramdeen, they must be guilty because Vincent Nelson says so. Vincent Nelson, if I tell him tomorrow that Fatima is the best team that ever played, he will and give him $5, he come in and say yes. Then if I tell him the next day that St. Mary's is the best team and give him $10, he come in and say yes. That is a political prostitute. So he has no credibility. at all. So we have to be careful. And I know that you are. So I know my time is running short. I have a million things to tell you all. And I see only a while. And I'm feeling it, Mr. Kanai. So you got to hold on a little bit. Really, we have to be careful with how this PNM tries to direct the narrative. You know, they're quick to tell us when we call them out that we are being obscene. If you watch the comments, Naked is the most obscene person, and you know what I mean? But I am telling you, who are being paid with taxpayers' money, that you are cheating taxpayers of what is their right. So if I cannot move you out with this, I've got to use our next finger. And you got to understand that. Because I only have, like the UNC, like the opposition, we have two things to move you out. We have the vote, or we have our mouths to speak. If you deny me that vote, like what you're doing now, postponing elections, if you deny us, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, the chance to tell you, in other words, symbolically, without this finger but our next finger, you have to give us that right. If you take away that right from us, how we expect us to move? So we are not being obscene by pointing out to you that you are the person keeping back Trinidad and Tobago, putting us in the abyss with the highest crime rate, with our children not being able to access proper education, with the worst healthcare system for the amount of money placed. If you do all of that, how do you expect our reaction to be? As a matter of fact, the obscenity is you, Keith Rowley. You are the symbol of anything diabolical. You are the symbol of anything devilish. You are the symbol of anything that could represent progress for Trinidad and Tobago. So, as I said, when our government has gone way beyond the boundaries of logic and begins to utilize force, and when I say force, anytime you breach the Constitution, anytime you blur the lines with the separation of powers, that is force. Don't think force is only when you send military to go and lock up people. No, from the time you break the law, you are using force. You are using political force against your enemies. And that is what they did with Nelson Gate. When you do not separate powers, when Fitzgerald Haynes could come and announce like he investigating crime, he already has undermined the separation of powers. That is not his remit at all. So we are not satisfied with the government's manipulation of the EBC, postpones election, denies the rightful duty of the people. Then the index finger must change to the middle finger. Don't blame us for being obscene. You are the obscene one, Keith Rowley. The obscenity lies with you. Rowley having no problem seeing young children face down in the ground to carry out the PNM master plan for his 1% financiers, that is obscenity. The obscenity lies with you, Keith Rowley, not respecting anybody or any of the nation's institutions and the women of this country, but asking for respect. That is obscenity. The obscenity lies with you, Keith Rowley, thinking that a new building or a one-off event is somehow public policy. The obscenity lies with you, Keith Rowley, decimating the healthcare system, which COVID-19 exposed writ large. The obscenity is with you, Keith Rowley, who have left our farmers and the agricultural sector isolated and stagnant. The obscenity is with you, Keith Rowley, who has plunged this great country into the depths of social and economic darkness, leaving a polarized, impoverished country as your legacy. But I'm here to tell you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and I give this endorsement, knowing it to be so. The Honorable Kamla Persad-Bissessar will bring this country back from the abyss. Who saw her president, who saw her presentation in the House on Friday spoke of her fire, her compassion that this woman still brings to the political table. Kamla Persad-Bissessar is ready. We are ready. The people of Trinidad and Tobago are ready to take this country back from this tyrannical, corrupt government led by the most tyrannical, corrupt Keith Rowley. This is nothing more than change for the benefit of this country, the self-interest of all our people. May Almighty God bless and guide us on the right path. I thank you, brothers and sisters.
This revolution is about restoring our democracy, and this revolution is about stopping this creeping dictatorship. This is the people's revolution. Come on, people. Peoples are turning your eyes out.
Passion for our people, especially our young people. Thank you so much, Mr. Nake. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is a stalwart of the United National Congress. In the Senate, he's a force to reckon with, an invaluable and cherished member of a great party. Let us welcome to the United National Congress virtual platform, former Speaker of the House, Senator Wade Mark.
Want freedom. Everybody crying out for democracy.
Now it's time to take a stand, yeah.
Come on! Cause this is the revolution, the people's revolution. This is the revolution. I wanna hear everybody sing. Everybody.
Thank you very much, Sister. The Honorable Kamla Persad-Bissessar, our illustrious political leader, and I dare say, with our collective support and the support of the people of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, will become our next Prime Minister. All preceding speakers, my brothers and sisters, all gathered at this very important building. Those of us who are listening and viewing this virtual meeting either at home, here in Trinidad, or abroad. My brothers and sisters all, today, at the opening of what is called the Global Climate Summit in Egypt, Antonio Guterres, I should say, Secretary General of the United Nations, warned the world that it is traveling on a highway to climate hell, and that the accelerator being pressed, each day that passes, there is need for a resolution to this climate crisis. I would like to paraphrase this statement and the language of the Secretary General and apply to our reality in our beloved republic. Trinidad and Tobago is on a highway to hell with a very evil, wicked individual at the helm, at our steering wheels. Brothers and sisters, our only chance from crashing, from driving into hell, is for us to unite, for us to resolve, to remove through a people's revolution Of course, within the democratic framework, this individual who is generating the kind of disaffection and replace him. We have to replace that driver with a new driver, and that driver is Kamla Persad-Bissessar. Brothers and sisters, look around us, look around you. Our beloved country is not in a recession, you know. We are in a state of depression. This is a depressed economy that we are experiencing today. Over the last 7 years, our economy has contracted by 20%. Over the last 7 years, it has not been growing. It has been declining. And brothers, all the distress signs and signals are there for us to see. The dislocation is evident for all of us to see. Look at what is going on. Unemployment. CSO says what? 4.8% at the end of the second quarter of 2022. Brothers and sisters, let us be real. Unemployment is about 15% in our country. We have over 150,000 people unemployed. May I remind you that young people between 15 and 29 years, according to the review of the economy, comprising 137,100 are unemployed. That is between 15 and 29 years. Food prices, since this man arrived on the compound, Rowley, it has gone up by 40%. 40%. The man has increased fuel prices not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 6 times. Brothers and sisters, young people are under stress. How long can we continue? And to compound the madness, brothers and sisters, under their watch, over 3,000 of our citizens have been murdered in the last 7 years. And if the trend continues as it is going in 2022, we are expected to have a murder toll by the end of the 31st of December of 640 citizens in our country. That is where we are heading, brothers and sisters. But I want to tell you, we have been going through austerity for 7 years. But austerity is not a necessity. Austerity is a choice. It is a policy choice. This PNM government has taken a policy decision to promote the interests of the few and the wealthy in our nation. And that is why wealth is so concentrated. I did some research in 2010, and up to 2008, based on the last data that they were able to extract, 90% of the people, no, let me rephrase, 90% of our wealth is controlled by less than 4% of the population of Trinidad and Tobago. So when you have income inequality and you have wealth disparity, you leave room for distress and disturbance in any society, comrades and brothers and sisters. And that is what we are experiencing today. When our honorable leader was in office, we cut crime by half, serious crime. You know why? it was a total approach taken by our leader and our Prime Minister. It was preventative measures. So many initiatives were taken. One of the main initiatives, brothers and sisters, was the creation of jobs. We created close to 56,000 jobs in 5 years for the people of our country. We settled 135 collective agreements valued at over $5 million, $5 billion. We put income, we put wages, we put salary into the pockets of the working man and woman in this country. Brothers and sisters, we have done a lot to bring about fairness and justice when we were there. Billions of dollars in foreign direct investment we attracted. All of these things contributed to a society that was in some degree of harmony, stability, and unity. Trinidad and Tobago was classified by an international organization as a society in which we had the happiest people in the entire Caribbean. Trinidad and Tobago under Kamla Persad-Bissessar. That was our record. Today, brothers and sisters, when we left in 2015, 645,000 people were in the labor force. You know, today, it is down at the end of the second quarter to 604,000. Brothers and sisters, do you know there's a concept called the non-institutional population? It is the range of 15 to 65. In our country, we have close to about 400,000 people who are looking for work. But they can't find work. They can't find employment. We have another 78 to 80,000. They just drop out of the labor force. You can't find them. When the CSO is conducting their SNAP survey to determine if you're employed through an interview, you cannot be found. Where are these people? What are their ages? What is their gender? Where are they living? We don't know. Brothers and sisters, we did it in the past. We will do it again in the future. But you know, sometimes it becomes indistinguishable to determine the criminals in our country. We have the criminals roaming and destroying and maiming and murdering. And then you have criminals in high office thieving. Brothers and sisters, as we have come to understand, I want to tell you something. Some of them don't know their real function. Rowley is a businessman. He's an entrepreneur. He's mining goat and sheep and selling it via high-low and all these other supermarkets. So he's getting two incomes, two sets of wages. Then you have a fellow called Faris Alwari. He's getting rent, $23 million every year. So he had two incomes. You have a fellow called Imbert. He's a developer. He have a big set of apartments selling at $3 million for one on Picton Street. He's an entrepreneur. He getting two sets of salaries. When Fuad Khan came as Minister of Health in the Honorable Kamla Persad-Bissessar's government, he was doing private practice at St. Augustine because he's a professional urologist. He had to give up that in order to work as a cabinet minister? How come Rowley getting 2 salaries and everybody quiet in the country? 2 salaries, brothers and sisters. But I want to tell you something, comrades, because my time is not much. I want to raise 2 issues with you this evening that is of critical importance. You and I would have read in today's papers this story. What Dr. Rudal Munilal raised. A resident in Tobago supposed to cost what? 25 million. How much it ended up costing? 63 million. And that is in black and white in a document that was given to all members in the House of Representatives when they went through what's called the Standing Finance Committee. So that is black and white. I am not making it up. $63 million. But I want to tell Dr. Munihal tonight, this evening, it is 25 million. It is 25 million. It is 17 million. It is 17 to 70. 17 to 70. A whopping 270 to 80% increase. Now tell me, brothers and sisters, I didn't say so. I want to invite you. I want to share with you the Express story by Ria Tate on November the 24th, 2019. 2019. Ria Tate, Rowley, praises $17 million residence. That is in 2019. However, this criminal comes back in 2022, and we are being told that we, the taxpayers, have to pay $63 million for a home that was completed by Rowley. If you think I lie, let me quote for you. The man talking like Jesus Christ when he had this event. He had a big event in Aruka, or I think it was somewhere in Diego Martin, some meeting. He had the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister is hosting a Christmas reception at the new Prime Minister's residence on the 21st of December, 2019. He goes on, the Prime Minister, right, said that the residence at Blenheim is complete. Is complete. I want to repeat, is complete. And ready for occupation. That is on the 24th of November, 2019. Well, he went further. He reminds me of a verse in the Bible. Him, it done, it finished, it nice. That's Rowley, it done, it finished, it nice. Well, comrades, brothers and sisters, I want to tell Dr. Rowley tonight, is this land day 2? Is this land day 2? I want to put him on notice tonight. We have the evidence. We want you to tell Trinidad and Tobago, Rowley, whether lot number 1 in a place called Forest Hills, formerly known as Land 8, is in the name of Sharon Clark Rowley. I want you to tell Trinidad and Tobago if on that same land, lot number 1, and there are 20 lots, and we have the cadastral sheet for all of them. I want you to tell Trinidad and Tobago, Prime Minister, if you have constructed with your wife a 5-apartment family dwelling unit. My information is that whilst the Prime Minister's residence was being constructed simultaneously, we understand a building, a 5-apartment building, I'm being told, asking Rowley to clear the air. Well, not a 5-story, a 5-apartment building and complex was being completed simultaneously. Is this land date 2? I say no more, but I can tell you, we have the evidence. We know where the building is. We have everything organized. We have the cadastral sheets. We know all of those people and have their names. I won't call them tonight. Who bought land in Land 8. So whilst you and I suffering, catching our aunt, nana and uncle, we have a situation where a building that was supposed to be $17 million according to Unicot in this report by Realtate on the 24th of November. We have it here. 17 million. It costs almost 70 million. 70 million. We want Rowley to explain. You see this? We want a criminal forensic investigation into this particular construction of a Prime Minister's residence. And by the way, did a fellow called Warner, was he subcontractor? Or was it Parks International? Parks was the constructor and the next one was the subcontractor. But understand, to pave a road, Tim, to pave a road leading to the Prime Minister's residence cost the taxpayers $5 million. Well, this is the most expensive road, and that is in the Auditor General's report. We have evidence for it. So, brothers and sisters, this government is a criminal government. This government is thieving. This is one of the most corrupt governments we have ever had in our country. And whilst they are thieving, Alibaba and the 40 thieves, whilst they are having a great time, our citizens are being murdered. They are dying. You can't send the children to school. Brothers and sisters, I tell you tonight, as a long-standing and serving member of this great party, enough is enough. Let us rise up. Let us stand up. Let us unite. Let us get rid of this dictator. Let us get rid of this evil and wicked PNM government led by Rowley. Let us together get them out. Satan, get the hands. Let us get rid of PNM. Long live the UNC. Long live Kamla Persad-Bissessar. Long live the people of TNT. Forward ever, backward never. Forward ever, backward, forward ever. Thank you.
If you cut me, you go see blood. And if you squeeze me, you go feel the love. We are one people under the sun, one nation under the law. So who feel the black? Who feel the white? I don't know. But it's not till tomorrow night. Who feel the wrong? Who feel the right? Come and go. And all who feel the too bright, let me jump up. Let me wind up. Party non-stop. Ramash is we come to play mass. Every creed and class. Don't let nothing pass. Like a repetitive all the love inside away.
First woman prime minister. First woman attorney general.
first woman to chair the Commonwealth of 54 nations, first woman opposition leader. Welcome KPP Plus, solid everywhere.
La competitive on the love inside the way.
Well, I think Wade really wake up everybody. Let's give him a round of applause. Our comrade and great soldier of the UNC. Thank you very much, Senator Mark. Let me thank also MP Anita Haynes, who spoke earlier. Give her a round of applause. Anita grows from strength to strength. And of course, young Michelle, MP for Maruga Tableland, a seat that we didn't think we could win, but she brought it home. Thank you, Michelle, for your comments tonight. And Senator Naked, I never thought you were an obscene person. I think you're a good human being with a good soul. So thanks to you again for your words tonight. Our two persons helping to chair, Councillor Rajbal, please let us thank him, and Alderwoman Chanade Ramadas Singh. So thank you all for those who are tuned in on the platform. Good evening, UNC family, those here, those out on the waves. Thank you for joining us tonight. And for those who are here tonight, we welcome you. Thank you. You know, I keep saying it is nice when we are speaking to people, to warm bodies, to real people, even though it's a virtual. Because your energy gives us back the energy that you can push out more energy. So thank you for showing up and joining us at this venue. Give yourselves a round of applause. And keep the energy and the applause going throughout the speech, so I will get more energy to speak with you. I see the Grande team is here. They never miss out. Let's give them a round of applause. You can't miss them. And all the other teams who have joined us, thanks again. So before I get into the substance of my speech tonight, I want to take a moment to congratulate a very beautiful young woman, Miss Trinidad and Tobago. Can we show her photograph up, please? Miss World Trinidad and Tobago. Congratulate her. Her name is Ashe Abrams, and she is a young 23-year-old person. She's a creative artist. She's a mental health advocate. She's a social activist. And so I'm so happy to see a beautiful young woman excelling not just in looks, but also in beauty and brain. So let's give her a round of applause. Congratulations. Now, I know others have spoken about crime tonight. I know that we are worried about the crime situation, and we're worried about health, we're worried about the future. I promise you that we will never give up. Together, as others told you, we will take back our country. We will never abandon you. We will always be here to fight for you and with you. And this wicked regime reminds me of the George Orwell 1984. Many of us have heard of it. If you don't, you should read that book, because we are seeing it playing out right now. That is a play list of Trinidad and Tobago, so go read it. I always encourage people to read. That is a book about a totalitarian society where the ruling elites, those in power, promote the idea of doublethink to brainwash the population. And what is doublethink? Doublethink is described as the ability to hold two contradictory views at the same time. Some say people we know, the PNM, Rowley's PNM, doublethink. Such as, you talk about war, at the same time you talk about peace. You talk about freedom, then you talk about slavery and freedom. You talk about ignorance is strength. Doublespeak is a rewriting of reality. So 2 + 2 now equals 5, no longer 4. That is what the PNM is about. This is the EV ideology of the PNM. They want us to believe a nation where people are struggling to make ends meet. They want us to feel all is fine. We were in Parliament Friday, and ministers living in this doublespeak, doublethink world want to tell us that the economy has grown. When every statistic, all the data, we keep collapsing. Even in the last quarter, whilst Embed boasting we are growing, economy is growing, the next day, within hours, the CSO put out, we had fallen again in our GDP. That is doublethink. They want you to feel that all is well. When Heinz told us about the children, he just spoke about it. Don't worry, them bullets, they're shooting far away. What madness. Double think again. Remember Anita told you the bullets what? Bullets move. They don't stay in one spot. How that child got killed in the playground? Bullets move. So they are totally out of touch. He says, okay, don't worry, and still telling us, don't worry. And now you have this government, together with their hand-picked commissioner of police, telling us about legal firearms and limiting legal firearms. What on earth are you doing about the illegal guns in the country? Tell us about that. Why are you so transfixed and obsessed with persons who have their guns with a legal license? You know, you say something, okay, so some ghastly thing happened, condolences to all involved and their families, where somebody with a licensed firearm committed murder and suicide, right? So you want to take away everybody with a legal gun. What about when they take a cutlass and chop you? You'll ban the cutlass too? If you take your hand and cuff down and kick down, what will you? You'll ban your hand and your foot? The answer is not about the weapon that is used. The answer is what are your plans, what are your policies, what are your programs to deal with the increase in crime. And I'll come back to some of those matters. So that is what they want us to think. They want us to believe that the sun is shining when it is raining. They want us to believe that you are flooded out because you built your house in the wrong place. Well, now all of them in the West getting flooded out. What do they have to say? All over Port of Spain, every Friday morning, every Friday evening, each other day, a little drop of rain, and the place is just totally flooded out. So the double think I'm speaking about, they want us to believe that in a country where innocent children have to learn to duck and cover from bullets, from gangs, that is one way, according to Haynes, crime is under control. I won't say more about that sleeping Minister Haynes, you know, because it is just too much now, and that's what I repeat what everyone is saying. We call on them to resign, we call on Rowley to fire them. That's not going to work. I said dissolve the parliament now and give the people the opportunity to go to the polls. Orwell also said, the further a society drifts from the truth, the more it will hate those that speak it. The further you drift away from the truth, the more you will hate those who speak the truth. I have no fear if they hate me, quite frankly. I don't care. I don't have enough love for my UNC family, for my own family. I don't care. I will always strive to speak the truth when I talk to you, when I talk anywhere I can. The people of TNT will never be brainwashed. You're not living in those days again. Thank God for social media, in fact. No matter what Rowley and his band of tyrants want us to think, 2 + 2 will never equal 5 in Trinidad and Tobago. Never, never. And Rowley plus his ministers, they will always equal 0. Nothing. Nothing whatsoever. So friends, members spoke about the local government election. I think Senator Naked spoke about it, and others. And in particular, Naked told us about the power you have with this finger. I'm not going to the other places, but this finger. Your voting finger. We want to talk about taking away, the right for persons to go to the polls. And it's clear, I said it before, that they're scared. Granny, you're going to win back that corporation. Get a round of applause. We'll win Siparia, we'll win Princess Town, we'll win Couva, Tabaquite, we'll win Chaguanas. And we are coming and we are going to win and take the San Fernando Borough Corporation. So they're scared. Why would you postpone an election in such an underhand manner? And Friday in Parliament, I warned them. I said the UNC will not rest on this. Haynes got up to speak and say, the member for Siparia, if they don't call my name or my seat for the sit-in, they're not happy. They're just so obsessed too. I told you that before. So Haynes gets up to say, oh, the UNC and that member for Siparia, and they're always going to court, and they're always going to court. And I said, well, what's wrong? If we see a wrong, what do? You go where you get the wrong writing. You go to a court of law, that's where you go. And it reminded me just last Monday I spoke to you when I talked about in days of old, you will go and fight with your gun and your sword and your cutlass and your whatever, gilpin, I think they used to call it too. You will go out and fight with those weapons, but in a democracy, under the rule of law, to have disputes adjudicated upon, to have wrongs righted. The place you go to is the court of Trinidad and Tobago. So he's attacking us of going to court. I said, you know what? I am so proud that we have gone to court and we have won so many times in the courts. We have brought justice to so many persons. And tonight, as I warned them on Friday, the UNC will not let this rest. So we have caused our lawyers to send out a pre-action protocol letter against Prime Minister Keith Rowley, against the disgraced, now sitting AG, and the former disgraced AG, Faris, in his capacity as local government minister. Here's it. From Freedom Law Chambers, again, let us give applause to a brilliant lawyer, Anand Ramlogan, and his team. So a pre-action letter has gone out today by electronic mail to these three persons. Proposed application for leave to apply for judicial review between Ravi Balgobin Maharaj versus the Cabinet of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago and the Minister of Rural Development and Local Government. And we must also thank Mr. Ravi Balgobin Maharaj. I have termed him a legal luminary. He steps up as the litigant each time we need to go to court. So our lawyers have written, we act on behalf of Ravi Balgobin Maharaj. He is a resident registered elector for the electoral district of Maracas, Santa Margarita. He's also a well-known blogger, social media journalist, and a social political activist with an abiding interest in the rule of law. Where the rule of law is threatened, he intervenes in the public interest by seeking judicial intervention. He has won several cases at all levels of the legal system, including the Privy Council. This is our claimant on behalf of course, many of us citizens of TNT. Further, the letter says our client seeks to commence these proceedings in the discharge of his duty and responsibility as a citizen of TNT to participate in creating and sustaining a vibrant democracy and in upholding the rule of law, a duty which is grounded and implicit in the preamble to the Constitution. The defendants are, of course, I mentioned, the Cabinet of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, and in this regard, the Prime Minister is one of the persons we are suing against. The second proposed defendant, I said, Minister of Rural Development and Local Government, and in these matters you join the Attorney General. So we have three defendants and our claimant. The facts are as follows. On 2nd December 2019, local government elections were held in Trinidad and Tobago. By virtue of these elections, councillors and aldermen of all municipalities were duly elected. Our client was entitled to and did in fact vote in these elections in the electoral district of Maracas, Santa Margarita. Mr. Corey Selvin, representing the PNM, emerged victorious in the elections, and he became, that's Selvin, the duly elected councillor for that district. Continuing, our client claims that during the period 2019 to date, he has grown frustrated with the poor representation provided by Mr. Selvin. Our client very rarely sees Mr. Selvin in the area, if ever, which has caused him great concern and consternation. The electoral district continues to have numerous potholes. The drains are not regularly cleaned. The environment is unkempt. Does it sound like everywhere we know? In Trinidad and Tobago, Michelle played the video and we heard people speaking. So our client is saying this in his letter. Widespread flooding, mosquitoes, and so on. Our client views Councillor Selvin as a non-performing councillor, whom he only saw during the campaign for elections in 2019, when Mr. Selvin was eager to obtain the support for his campaign. Therefore, our client was looking forward to the local government elections, which are lawfully due between December 22 and March 2023. Our client was eagerly awaiting this opportunity so that he could exercise his civic duty to vote for a new representative in the hope that better representation could be provided for the burgesses of the district of Maracas, Santa Margarita. Our client further instructs that he is aware that in 2019, a bill was brought by government to Parliament for local government reform. Our client, who is an avid follower of Parliament, remembers that the bill was sent to a joint select committee and eventually lapsed in 2020 upon the dissolution of the Parliament before the general elections held in August that year, 2020. The PNM won those elections, and when they returned to office, the bill was reintroduced into Parliament by then Minister Qasim Hussain. The bill was once again sent to a joint select committee and was eventually reported back to the House. The report of the committee was debated in the House on several dates in 2022 and passed with a simple majority. The opposition abstained. The bill was then piloted in the Senate by the new minister, Faris Al-Rawi. It was passed in the Senate with a simple majority June 2022. The opposition again abstained in the Senate. Our client followed the debate in both houses of Parliament, and at no point in time did the government ever indicate that the legislation was applied retrospectively. You know what that big word means? Backwards. The PNM continues always to govern watching in the rearview mirror rather than going forward. So nowhere in that debate was it indicated that the legislation was to apply retrospectively and or to current elected councillors under aldermen. Our client at all material times understood the purport of the amendments to be in the furtherance of reform in local government and therefore to apply prospectively to a future elected council. The bill became Act 11 of 2022, referred to as the Miscellaneous Provisions Local Government Reform Act 2022, and was assented to on 1st July 2022. On 3rd November, a few days ago, 2022, our client watched a virtual press conference held by Minister of Local Government, when the minister disclosed that it was government's intention to proclaim certain sections of the Act, specifically those dealing with an increase in term limits from 3 years to 4 years for members of council, in particular that of councillors and aldermen. The minister further indicated it was government's and/or cabinet's understanding of the law that it applies to the current council, and therefore their respective terms would be increased by 1 year due to these amendments. In light of that decision and/or declaration, the local government elections, which are due between December 2022 to March 2023, are now due 1 year later, which would be December 2023 into March 2024. Now, I'll pause on the reading of the letter just to point something out of how this was reported. It was clear that the intention they had when they made the declaration was to postpone the elections. But it was reported as councillors given 1 more year. So they expected councillors are going to get up and clap, boy, we get next year. No election. When the true intent and the devious manner in which it was done was to say that 1 more year, councillors getting 1 more year. Why? Because we have to deal with this reform. What utter madness and totally unlawful actions on the part of the government. I'll come back to the letter we've sent them. So, elections now due 1 year later. That is what is the point in this. It's not whether they get 1 more year, 5 or 10 or 20 years. It is they have postponed illegally the local government elections. In particular, the minister said the following, and we quote here in this reaction letter. This is the disgraced Faris Al-Wari. So the journey of bringing to life the full local government reform implementation now starts legislatively into action on the cabinet's decision that we proclaim starting with the life of councils, moving from 3 years to 4 years. He continues, this is Faris. Let me translate this into simple terms. Boy, if you ever see, you know what is a mackerel? You may have seen a real one. When I was a child growing up, we used to grow up near the cocoa fields, coffee and cocoa, and down in those valleys and so on, down in Quarry Village. And mackerel, that is a thing that's contort, is a contortionist. That's what Faris did. His entire speech was a total mackerel move, trying to make sense out of total nonsense. That's what he did in trying to justify their fair and postponing of the election. So Faris now contorts further. Let me translate this into simple terms. It means that whereas the life of the terms of all councillors and aldermen which in factual terms would mean by 3rd December 22, instead, with the proclamation of this law, as the Cabinet has decided, the law is to be proclaimed today. With the proclamation of this law, the life of councillors and aldermen will now go to 3rd December 2023. So, postponing elections by edict. That's what they're doing. They're making declarations and pronouncements to postpone an election. That is serious, serious business. The lifeblood of a democracy like ours is elections. And elections have consequences. We know that. JJ tells us that all the time, DPL JJ. Elections have consequences. So you know what? Vote PNM and tell your children duck down under the desk in school. Vote PNM again and tell everybody duck under your bed in your house because they're coming for you. Vote PNM and tell them, okay, take all the potholes you could get. Vote PNM and take no water in your taps. Vote PNM and lose your job, lost your job, lose your life. Vote PNM. So when they want to tell us the right choice, we see there all the time on the social, blight choice, vote PNM again. And as we told you, we are on a highway to hell. Well, 4% what? The people we talk about or the salary increases? Vote PNM and they have not settled they settled one. When we were in government, we settled over 133 wage negotiations in 5 years. They cannot settle. When they came to Parliament, they're so wicked, only for themselves, friends and finances and family. They came to Parliament to deal with retirement benefits for MPs. So they increased that for themselves. We had one MP so smart. His name is Ganga Singh. You all might remember him. Very nice person. I have nothing against him. He voted for that in the Parliament, you know. The rest of us in here, he said, no, things are too hard. We should not increase this. In addition, in calculating your pensions and so on, Rowley insisted and insisted and insisted you must include as part of your salary the monies that are given to MPs and ministers and so on. We don't get it. People get something called a housing grant. The man don't have a house to pay for. He has a free house paid for by the taxpayers, and we'll come to the next social bill just now. And he insisted in that Parliament to include a figure where there's none, because you don't pay for premises grants for house. You give them a whole house with staff. That's what for themselves, always about themselves. I don't know how I reached so far in all of that, so let me come back to the matter in my hand. Yes, the letter. So the full press conference, we gave the link for it and so on. After that statement, there has been widespread condemnation of the government's position. The Guardian editorial dated Friday, 4th November 2022, and entitled, "Is Democracy Delayed? Democracy Denied?" had this to say, and I quote from the editorial of the Guardian, Friday, 4th November. That was just Friday. Yeah, today's Monday. Friday before. Quote, "However, the government will have a lot of work to do in the coming days and weeks to convince the public that the latest decision is in fact in the best interest of the nation and not simply for political gain. It is no secret the government's popularity is at an all-time low." Not Kamla, no. Not JJ, not Nakid, not any of us. This is whom? The Guardian editorial, saying that the government's popularity is at an all-time low. And local government election will serve as a referendum on government's performance ahead of the 2025 general election. Continuing from the editorial, no doubt runaway crime, unemployment, daily protests over decrepit roads and unions raging against the 4% offer must weigh on the government's mind, as will likely affect its chances of winning an election. So they read the play. They're afraid, mortally afraid to call that election. The editorial continues, and I continue to quote, "It is significant that this announcement comes as Dr. Rowley is campaigning internally to reclaim his spot as PNM leader." I have nothing to say about the elections, but the Guardian editorial is saying it is significant. So first of all, the government under all-time low popularity, and two, this man is fighting for his leadership in his internal elections. At Wednesday night's party meeting, he repeatedly, again it's still the Guardian, he repeatedly espoused the importance of respecting and adhering to timelines for elections. You see, we told you about doublethink. The man pontificating about elections, respecting, adhering to timelines for elections in that meeting. And 1 day or 2 days later, he's so coward, he sent Faris to make the announcement. So when he was talking that night in front of the party faithful, he was there espousing the importance of respecting and adhering to timelines for elections. The editorial continues, "It is also an about turn for the Prime Minister, who has been preaching since he took office that elections will always be held when they are due." Double-think again. Double-think again. Dr. Rowley spent 7 years living in the shadow of now deceased former PM Patrick Manning's administration, which postponed local government elections on 4 separate consecutive occasions from 2006. In 2010, it took my government and your party to call the local government elections. And every time thereafter, we call those elections on time. So this PNM again, talk one thing and do something else. Double think. To them, as I said, 2 and 2 equals 5 in their world. So the editorial continues. It therefore falls on the Prime Minister to put all fears to rest that democracy delayed is not democracy denied. Close the quotations there. Continue in a letter to the editor published by Newsday, November 5th, 22, entitled "Delay Good for Government, Not for Democracy," really encapsulates the mood of the population. Given the several deferrals of government's plans, one would argue that waiting another 2 to 3 months to implement them or to do so after an election should be the way to preserve democracy. Continues there in that Newsday article. Moving along, the challenge decision. We give background more factual, the factual matrix, but you can read more of it and we'll post the letter up. So let's get to what is the decision being challenged. We challenge the following on lawful action. The declaration that the decision by the Cabinet and or the Minister of Rural Development Local Government that the amendment to Section 11(4) of the Municipal Corporations Act operates retrospectively such that it extends tenure of councils until December 3rd, 2023, in consequence of which local government due now between 3rd December 23 to 3rd March 2024. The proposed grounds of challenge, pre-action letter tells the defendants, our client challenges that decision on the following grounds under the Judicial Review Act, Chapter 708. 1, that the decision was in any way unauthorized or contrary to law. The decision is in excess of jurisdiction, an abuse of power, fraud, bad faith, improper purpose, or irrelevant considerations, is in conflict with the policy of the Municipal Corporation Act, is in error of law, whether or not apparent on the face of the record, is in breach of or commission to perform a duty, is a deprivation of a legitimate expectation, is an exercise of a power in a manner that is so unreasonable that no reasonable person could have so exercised the power. Our client will contend government has acted in an unauthorized manner, contrary to law, and the other grounds of challenge that I have read for you. So the other parts of it goes into the law itself, so I will not bore you further except to tell you there's a very famous case that I've used repeatedly when challenging government's action. It's a case out of Mauritius, which has a similar constitution like ours, a similar jurisprudence, rule of law out of the Westminster system and so on. This case is known as State and Coriati. And we will be relying on this case in this matter that we have, that we'll now be taking forward as we go, that they have acted illegally and unlawfully. And then, based on these declarations, we say that we are entitled, one, to an order that leave be granted for judicial review, and I've read the reliefs for you. A declaration that that decision is unlawful and so on. An order of certiorari to quash the decision, to move it into the court. An injunction to prevent them from implementing. A declaration that these persons already in office, that these seats are vacant with effect from December 3rd, 2022, and not from next year, 2023. An order that this matter be deemed fit for urgent and expedited hearing. An order that permission be granted to the applicant to rely on the affidavit filed in support of his ex parte application and so on, costs to be assessed, and such further and or other relief as the court may deem fit. So here we go. We don't just talk. We put the money, the action, we walk the talk, we talk the talk, and we walk the walk. So we go to court on your behalf. I say, onward, UNC soldiers. We will not go with sword and guns, but we will go with the rule of law on our side. Now, there are a lot of other matters, but that took me some time, but I felt it important because, as I said, elections represent the blood of a democracy, the heartbeat of a democracy. And when you take that right away, you're interfering with the very foundations of a democracy governed by the rule of law. As we talk about unlawful action by this government, I want to share with you, I have been informed, and like Wade Mark, I'm asking for a friend. I have been informed that a private company, on request from a high-ranking politician, is monitoring the phones of a group of citizens. I had raised this matter some time ago. Now I'm being informed they've asked a private company, so we say the SSA is monitoring phones and tapping phones and so on. The information I've received, and is it true that a high-ranking politician, and wouldn't be one of us in the UNC, a high-ranking politician on the other side, that they have requested a private company to monitor, in other words, to tap the phones of a certain group of persons. Remember, former Minister Griffith, former commissioner, told us that they were illegally intercepting his phones and he was going to court and so on. And now I have this allegation that a private company has been requested to do this dirty work for the government. It is said that this company is associated with a security company. So connect the dots. I told you months before of the illegal spying by government agencies. Now they have hired a private company to do their spying. This dictatorial government is tapping your phones. So be very careful what you say or don't say on those phones. I always tell you, that, when you look at the good PI movies, detective movies, and they have the phone, they leave the phone somewhere and they go and walk in the garden, walk in the park, with a lot of noise. And so if you have anything very sensitive to speak about, don't use the phone, please. So sorry. Just don't use the phone. Because we don't know which ones they are tapping. I've been informed of some of the names. I'm sure my name is on that list. I mean, I'm not surprised. I'm sure you're very popular. My name must be on that list. And I'm sure they hear very good things on that phone from time to time. So don't ever use your phone for anything you don't want somebody else to hear or know about. So I call on government to clear the air. Is it true that a government official a politician has requested a private security firm to tap the phones of citizens? Now we've seen the crime rate spiraling. Many have spoken, so I'll pass that for now. I talked last Monday about crime plans and whatever, but people they don't listen or they don't read. So they said, Kamla, come and say, split the ministry into 2 ministries. I saw a Guardian. The whole Guardian yesterday was about customs about the ports. Didn't I tell you about that Monday? I said, take that out of finance and put it under the newly formed National Security Ministry, which I gave another name, Home Affairs. Take it out, the whole paper. But yet when you read their commentaries, they say the opposition have nothing to offer, just split the ministry in two, create more ministries. So I will not go through all of those. You know, when they tell you the justice system is under pressure, I told you one of the plans, yes, we have split national security to two, Home Affairs, as I told you, Defense. And we are talking about also a Ministry of Justice, which we had before, that its sole remit will be to deal with the judiciary and the judicial system. It's not about just having more ministers and more ministries, you know. It's about getting greater competencies and efficiencies in these very crucial areas. So we have, instead of getting plans and so on, we have the convenient COVID man. Where is the minister, the prime minister? Where is he? Somebody said he was playing golf over the weekend. I don't know if that was true, because he told the whole world he was on COVID lockdown, so I don't know if that's true. And then where is the Minister of Education? I haven't seen her for some time. Well, one got COVID and got COVID again and again and again. I remember Rowley was so crude, and he told the country, I don't want to, I can't even say them kind of words. And he said, what? Don't JACKASS the thing. You remember with the national TV? So listen, look who got COVID again. This man must be the most COVID attractive person. How many times is it now? 4? 5? 4 or 5? Well, don't be surprised in 2 weeks' time. It will happen again. 6 will may happen again. I want you to play the video clip if you have it, please.
His calypso is don't jackass the thing. Understand?
So, this is a man who goes on a public platform and says, tell the opposition leader, Kamla Persad-Bissessar, I want respect. You do not deserve respect from anybody in this country. You don't deserve it. None whatsoever. How can you speak to citizens in that way, and many others? So I call him the convenient COVID person. We have Prime Minister's questions next week. Guess what? Well, we'll see. Will we not? We'll see if it's COVID again. We'll just wait and see if Prime Minister will turn up, or if he'll give the most famous acting Prime Minister, Imbert. That man should get an Oscar for the amount of times he's acted as Prime Minister. I come to a more serious matter. I raised it last Monday. It has not been answered. And the question is, why does Stuart and his family have full security details? Why? Your family, your children, husband or wife, brother, sister, everybody in fair in this country. And you have a ministry, I've said it, that is not a high, attractive ministry in terms of security matters. The man is in charge of the Ministry of Energy. And the way they shut down everything in the energy sector, he don't even have much to do anymore. Doesn't have much to do at all. So other government ministers, their families, are protected by the best trained officers who are all armed with legally issued firearms, whilst Jacob has his war against citizens with legal firearms. Even though 87% of the 519 murders have been committed by what? Illegal firearms. All this while crime, murder, and safety and security, top concern of all citizens, regardless of which party. Crime don't know, the bullet don't know red or yellow, you know. The bullet doesn't know if it's a child, a woman, a man, it doesn't know. Regardless of where your support lies. And so, not everybody gets 24/7 security like Stuart Young. Why does Stuart Young have a security detail? More than that, even the National Security Minister, and he never had a threat, He also has 2 officers assigned for each of his 2 sons. So he has a full detail, and then each of his 2 sons has 2 officers. Yes, son, yes, you don't have that, sorry. You are not Stuart Young's son. I don't ever wish to be, by the way. So, 2 officers assigned. Well, I wasn't told about his stepdaughter, so we could inquire. We are told that he has 2 officers assigned for each of his 2 sons. So he has a detail for himself a year after he left the National Security Ministry. Also, he has a 24/7 police patrol vehicle assigned to guard his residence. Yeah. And that vehicle should have been used to patrol the Diego Martin area, but no, patrolling around this person's house. Your station never has a vehicle, but Stuart has one stationed at his home. Someone, I didn't share this with you, someone jumped at my gate a few months ago, They climbed over the fence and jumped in the gate. Yeah. Took about 40 minutes for anybody to arrive on spot. 40 minutes later. And here it is. This man has full security detail. Full security. Himself, his family, his house. Can you imagine what the average citizen goes through? I don't have to imagine, you know. You know what it is like. So I call on the Prime Minister, why do you have all the security detail around Stuart Young? On what criteria are you relying to assign so much security to this man when the rest of the country can't even see one policeman, one car in one day? I'm not blaming the TTPS, it's again the issue of resources and so on. So why are you doing that? What is the rationale? Again, one law for them, and another law or no law for everyone else. So I move along to another issue. I know Dr. Mulal raised it, but I want to raise it again because we haven't had any answers. Was President involved in the pardon to Vincent Nelson? The President must stop hiding. She must stop playing that she has PIP and must speak. Because when we call on her repeatedly, I had written, and we call openly for us to tell us who was the man who come and stopped the merit list for the Police Service Commissioner at merit list, whom never answered. The Prime Minister himself never answered. Months later, he come to say it was me. That was the man. So tonight I ask, President, you must tell the country whether you were involved in the alleged agreement to provide a presidential pardon to Vincent Nelson, in the same way that happened, your involvement with the merit list. Vincent Nelson's statement of claim filed in the court on 27 June 22 has been reported in the Sunday Express, and in it, Nelson's claim on seal alleges Arawi promised him, Nelson, a presidential pardon. Look where these fellows reach, boy. Presidential pardon. Then, that pardon for Nelson was deemed to be necessary because he was subject of a criminal investigation under the UK Bribery Act. Nelson had been informed about this in writing October 5th, 2018 by the UK National Crime Agency. So since the President must sign off on all presidential pardons, we call upon this President, really already discredit the President, to say whether she had any knowledge or whether she agreed to the planned presidential pardon for Vincent Nelson. She must tell us. Dr. Munilal said it at our opposition press conference yesterday. He said, and I quote, "This is akin to a controversy, a scandal beyond words, that the President's office could have been involved in a conspiracy to induce a witness in a criminal matter by the granting of a presidential pardon." End of quote. And so this is the worst president in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. And she must answer if she had any involvement in this Nelson Gate scandal on the matter of the pardon. I move along now about, I think it was Wade Mark talked about ministers having 2 and 3 jobs. But I think the one who really takes the cake, Wade Mark, is a fellow by the name of Foster Cummins. Foster Cummins, yes. Because when we ask questions in the Parliament, just after the budget debate, you have something called a Standing Finance Committee, and we ask questions, and we got those replies just this Friday, what, 6th, in Parliament, we got the replies, and some of the questions that we asked, so let me get to them now, as we go to the Foster Cummins scandal. So Wade, this fellow don't have 2 jobs. You mentioned Faris with his 23 million. You mentioned someone else, Fuad Khan, had to give up. I called him, I said, you can't. If you're a minister, you have to give up, choose. But of course, he chose the minister's work instead of the medical. And others, Rowley, who says a businessman, sheep and goat and so on. Well, here's Foster Cummins. During the Standing Finance Committee, we asked questions. And that was the first week of October, and we got the responses on Friday. Most of the ministries provided answers to the questions we had asked. Some of them did not. And I'm going to call them, I'm going to name them and shame them if they have any shame at all. The Office of the AG, AMO is not disclosing legal fees paid in the last year. The Ministry of Finance, they did not submit their responses to our questions. The Ministry of Works and Transport, no response. Chief Whibley raised the issue, and we were told that on Tuesday we will receive responses, so we'll wait. We raised it on Friday. Well, what about the other ministries? They say we'll get it Tuesday. Let's see what happens. So we got and we reviewed some of the responses, what we got. I will share with you issues in the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. MP Saddam Hussein asked the Minister of Housing to provide information on how much money was paid to 3 companies by the HDC. This was a question. Then in October, response came Friday. The 3 companies were Rivulet Investment Group Limited, Clydon Enterprises Limited, Pical Services Limited. Why these 3 companies? You remember in the past, I raised concerns with these companies because of affiliation they had with Minister Foster Cummins. On checking the company's registry just today, we checked again. Pical Services, Juliet Modest, the wife of Foster Cummins, is a director, shareholder, beneficial owner of Pical Services. And that company, we are told, and I have the document here to receive from Parliament on Friday from the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. We're looking at Pical Services paid in fiscal 2022. This is 1 year only, yeah? And we know there were other years that monies were paid to him. So let's just deal with this one in my hand. Fiscal 2022. Paid to Pical Services Limited, $19.8 million. Wait, that's one job or 2? $19.8 million paid to Pical, where initially Foster was the director and so on, and shareholder, together with his wife, Juliet Modest. He pulled his name out, but it's still friend and family. It's still the same. Then, Rivulet Investment Group Limited. Again, Juliet Modest, wife of Foster Cummins. She's director, shareholder, beneficial owner of Rivulet Investment Group Limited. That company benefited from the agency, $3.5 million for fiscal 2022 in 1 year. 1 year. Then we come to the third company, Clydon Enterprises Limited. Minister Cummins, do you have any affiliation to this company? Do you know the director, Donetta Pear of Clydon Enterprises, who was once a company secretary on your company, Cummins and Associates? The company of Clydon Enterprises benefited from payments from the HGC, $9.1 million in fiscal 2022. A grand total of $31 million in 1 year to affiliates, friend and family of Foster Cummins. You cannot even get a piece of back pay. You can't even give them a 4%, but this is what? $31 million to those taxpayer dollars, to those associated with Foster Cummins. In the past, Pical was known for maintenance and sanitary projects in HDC development. Maintenance, you know. Yeah, that's cleaning, yes, Councillor, that's cleaning. Sanitary, maintenance and sanitary cleaning. Man making $31 million. Yep. So it's not just for cleaning. Now I want to know if you have house billing. Is the HCC giving him house bill from cleaning and garbage collection and sun? You know billing house? I'm asking. Tell us, Minister of Housing, tell us what these monies were paid for from the HDC to these associate companies with Mr. Foster comments, okay? The other company, Rivulet Investment, is engaged, as you're saying, Councillor Taxi, they are engaged with HDC under the Accelerated Housing Program. 6 units at Bonaire South, Bonaire Park, 4.2 million. 12 units, phase 2 at Bonaire Park, 8.9 million. That is not this 31 million now. We continue, keep counting now, keep counting how much job, because these were what for we don't know. And then we know these now for Accelerated Housing Program, more money coming in. Malabar site, 3 13-townhouse units, 9 million. Oasis Green Shaguana's completion works building, $5.1 million. Well, first we thought you had it easy, boy. But you had to wait 3 years to get your 23 million. This Foster getting 31 million plus in 1 year. That's what he's getting. So while they cut your food card, they take away the fuel subsidy. Companies belonging to families of these ministers benefit from multi-million dollar contracts. When you have to wait 10 to 15 years, if you're so lucky to get a call from the HDC for a house, a multi-story Balaji house is going up rapidly. Those of you passing tongue, you see this thing, that thing looking like it's nearly $100 million. And they're billing it from what? Raffle sheets. I wish somebody give me someone, let's do a raffle like that. Huh? Do a raffle like that. So government and ministers benefiting millions of dollars. And all this going alongside of a multi-story Balaji house going up. Connect the dots. They said they got sponsorship from whom? Tell us who are the sponsors building this multi-story, multi-million dollar building. I think last week JJ spoke about the UNC and the way we conduct our business, nothing like that. Continuing with this condominium of this PNM. Commissions of inquiry. Feeding frenzy again. Again, we got more information from the same document, another document from the Office of the Prime Minister, where we ask questions. And so we see money allocated for commissions, again, wasting money. 2 commissions of inquiry the government will be doing, one into the death of pariah divers. Where is that? When will it ever start? The other into the Point 14 highway. The commissioners of these 2 inquiries alone, they were paid $3 million in 2022, just for 2022. Whilst again, the deceased drivers, their families and so on, have trouble to see. They paid a Mr. Gregory Wilson $600,000. They paid retired Judge Sebastian Vento $1.3 million. They paid Mr. Kurt Lee Wen just over $1 million. So $3 million spent in 2022 on these commissions of inquiry. What benefit have we seen? What benefit has come to our people? And look at the hypocrites and they are. Can you play that video, please? They say one, double think and double speak. Say one thing and mean another.
I will ride to court. I will take a bike. That will save fuel. That's my solution.
That's the person. Double speak, double think. 5 and 5 equals 11. Thank you. Okay. We went along now back to the Office of the Prime Minister. And we asked questions about how monies were spent in fiscal 22 with respect to several buildings. And we see where over $300 million spent in fiscal 2022 to restore public buildings. And one of those was to build the Tobago House, and I'll come to it in a moment. So they spent $23 million, over $23 million to restore St. Myers Castle. $58 million for Whitehall. Also, Rowley could make the, what is it, the name of his book for what? From Mason Hall to Whitehall? to make him go and slung in Whitehall to say, hey, I wasn't wrong in the book, from Mason Hall to Whitehall. Fifth, and this is only for fiscal 22. Total cost, all right, Mohani, all right. Total cost of these projects to date. Whitehall restoration, 58 million with an additional 8 million unpaid. Millfleurs building, 23 million with some more outstanding. Restoration of President's House, $122 million with 27 million outstanding. Let's come now to this Tobago House. Construction of Prime Minister's Tobago residence. Balance as at 30th September 2022. So this is up to date. Money spent to construct the Tobago House for the Prime Minister. Now both Wade and Dr. Munilal has given you some figures, but Wade, I'll have to devil the point. It looks like from this document, from the Office of the Prime Minister we received on Friday in the Parliament, paid, certified to date, 277.9 million, sorry, 48.7 million, so about 49 million. And unpaid balance of a 15.4 million. So all of that comes up to what, wait, about 70. So from 17 to 70, according to this document, but something is not ringing right. Because we have some books that we get numbers, we call them yellow books. These are the Bibles of the Parliament when we are dealing with finances. Draft estimates, development program. So every year, the government puts out one of these. This one is for fiscal 22. And of course, we have the 2023, but every year they will put it out. So every item of expenditure, there are three numbers that appear. You will have the estimated amount, okay? You will have what is known as the actual. So they're always 1 year behind time. So when you bring the 2022, they will give you the actual for the year prior to 22 will be 2021. Yes, thank you. 2021. So you'll have to take the books each year to get the actuals over the years, to get the actuals. And we will see under something known as the IDF, this is a Program Infrastructure Development Fund, you have the Office of the Prime Minister. And in that, we get the public buildings, and we get the Tobago building, okay? So what do we get about this Tobago building now? When we total the actuals from when this building began with to the present time, what we get is not 70 million. So there is a discrepancy, double speak and double think and double maths. The numbers are not adding to what we got in the document from the Office of the Prime Minister. And therefore, I have questions to ask. 17 to 70. The document coming out from the Office of the Prime Minister tells us 48.7 million certified with an outstanding balance of 15, which takes us to the about 70. That's this document is saying that. But when we go and we pick up the actuals now, and I take that up to 21, because we will not get the 22 actual until next fiscal. So we have the actuals up to 21. Yep. They began the building starting from about 2016, and right up to 2021, we get a total of 74.7 billion. So it's not even 60 going on 70. And then now, when we pick up the book this year, we see a further estimate of $10 million. So like every year, this thing just climbing and climbing and climbing. So when you think it's 17 to 70, by the time we're done, this will be $100 million. Huh? So I'm asking which one to believe. Do I believe this document that came from the Ministry of the Office of the Prime Minister? Do I believe this, which tells us about 60 billion, 48 plus 15? Or do I believe the numbers produced by the Minister of Finance every year in the estimates of expenditure for the development program under that house in Tobago built by the Prime Minister? So you have questions to answer, but whichever way you answer it is why you can't even get a reply from the HEC. We mentioned that. You can't pay your rent, you can't buy gas, you can't feed your children. Every road and bridge is in a dilapidated state. Look at what happened. 70, 80, 90, 100 million in a house in Tobago. You know, in my time, Dr. Ullah will tell you, he was Minister of Housing, and he come with me that foolishness about building, fixing some house in Tobago. I say, you're mad. Take that and buy laptops, build hospitals. It's not I have anything against the people of Tobago. Take it and help the people of Tobago. Give their children laptops too. Give them food cards, help them. Counting 70, 80, 90, 100 million for a house. I don't know if it didn't get put out. I don't know if it get put out of some house in Trinidad. I don't know. I don't know. Why you have to spend this money in these times on this Tobago residents, you see? So when we raise this, they say we jealous or we vexed. Look, I'm happy in my pink palace. They call it the pink palace. Somebody told me when we built that house and we painted it, they said the only thing Kamla did wrong is she had such poor taste in colors, she painted it pink. But I'm happy. You know, I'm happy about that. Built out of hard-earned money. My husband, I must thank him, and I must thank myself too. Hard work, hard work. And that house was completed before I became Prime Minister. Remember that. Just remember that. House was completed. We had election May 2010. I know soon after I became Prime Minister, Manning tried to raise it in the Parliament. And I took all the books. Greg used to keep all these old books, ledgers, with everything in it. So, look, you need to answer, and you need to have some compassion and care for people. It's not just about you and your family and your friends and what you want. It can't just be that. Thank you. We are worried about all of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Needed the taxpayers to build this new house. Can't see why. So I think those are most of the points. I have some others. They passed me a note. Let's see what's wrong. Nothing is wrong. They want me to talk more. They want me to talk about more things. So let me see what else. I have it here, you know, what I've been ad-libbing. And is there monkeypox in Trinidad and Tobago? Do you know? Will the government tell the people if we have monkeypox in Trinidad and Tobago? I have been informed a person was quarantined on the 28th October. Can you find the monkeypox quarantine order? 28th October, just not too long ago, this year, for possible monkeypox. If this is so, why has the Ministry of Health not made an announcement on this matter? Has this person been confirmed to be afflicted with monkeypox? See there? We put out the names to protect the person. Is monkeypox confirmed as being present, and what steps is the government taking? You recall Dr. Tim Gopi Singh and many of us in Parliament raised the issue of the COVID in January of that year, which was a Tim, the same year it came here. 2020, we raised it on several occasions. They would not allow us to speak about it at all. 5 times. So I'm asking you, you cannot be quiet on this serious matter. The government must come clear and tell us whether we must be on a monkeypox alert. Has any case confirmed to be here in Trinidad and Tobago? Well, whatever era, it's like bullets, you know, what you say, they move. The virus moves. It could be here, it could be up the road, it moves in the atmosphere. So they must tell us and tell us what precautions we need to take. I'm being reminded that this government is hell-bent on fighting down the legal firearms. What is our position on that? If you have a licensed firearms, it is legal. Why are you fighting down these people? I made a point earlier that you are going down a road not looking for the illegal firearms. I want to make it clear, and this is what they're asking me to remind me to say to you, to everyone tonight, on the issue of licensed firearms. So let me find my text, because this is not something I want to get mixed up with in the wrong way. So one moment, please. So they want to make it harder for persons to access legal firearms. Now, you saw the case recently where someone attempted to hold up a person in a car with a toy gun. You remember? And in that car, there was a person with a legal firearm, and they were able to well, wasn't good, but they were able to save themselves. So this government is very focused on making citizens more helpless. They want to increase fees for law-abiding citizens to access personal defense firearms. They want to make it harder to access legal firearms. Law-abiding citizens have seen much more police investigations than the tens of thousands of illegal firearm holders throughout the country. Acting Commissioner Jacobs' fixation with legal firearms must be of concern to all citizens, because what he's doing is he's favoring the criminal elements. It's the same way the pepper spray, talked about it so long. They still can't get this pepper spray to give us a defense in our own hands. I talked to you earlier, if you cannot defend yourself, then what do? It's the same thing with this illegal firearms. They can't handle it, but they want to deal with the legal ones. I'm also concerned that the FUL investigation seems to be politically motivated, designed to attack a political opponent, former Commissioner Gary, in the same way they used Vincent Nelson to attack members of our party. So this pattern of behavior has little regard for law-abiding citizens. Haynes is tone-deaf and irresponsible. Jacob needs to be reminded, under his leadership, TTPS heads for about 600 murders, the highest total in our history. That's where they're heading. Imbert has signaled his intention to exorbitantly raise fees for FUL holders. Again, all these signals, it seems to me, is not to allow you the opportunity of defending yourselves. So I want to make this statement tonight, that the UNC understands your pain. We understand the concerns, we understand your disillusionment of Rowley and this government, that they are aligning their fortunes, it appears, with the criminals. So I want to promise you that under a UNC government, we will not only purge the system of persons like this, we will take an approach which favors law-abiding citizens as opposed to criminals that the PNM now seems to favor. Any law the PNM brings to make it harder for law-abiding citizens to obtain firearms, a new UNC government will repeal any such law. Further, we will bring legislation to make it easier for law-abiding citizens to legally obtain firearms. And for those of you who don't like to hear that, you are welcome, just don't apply for one. Just don't apply if you're not happy with that. But those who believe that you can save yourselves and your family, you can imagine you're in gunshots outside your house and what you have? Nothing. You're like a sitting duck sitting there, but you're not even sitting duck, you're under the bed. You're hiding in fear. Can you imagine, women, we are strong, but can you imagine as a father, as a man in a house? You're totally emasculated. What do? You run outside with the cutlass or with the knife? What do you do? So where it is you fit the criteria legally, a UNC government will take steps to ensure law-abiding citizens can obtain firearms. We'll change the law to make it possible for average citizen of good character, no criminal record, to obtain legal firearms. I wanted to make that position very clear, because this issue on the firearms is on the airways day and night. And then that nonsense about this bail legislation. Again, you had the bail legislation for years. I told you all on Monday, Forrest came and said, we know who they are, we know their names, we know their addresses. When you pass this, we just have to go and pick them up. Years ago, and we gave you the majority. We're not doing that again. I'm not going to support your bail legislation. I will not support it, because it will be useless. You're just mamagaing the population that you have some fight and policy and program to fight crime when you don't. What was your program? First, more boots on the ground. That has been your mantra, your story every time. Then you talked about this bail legislation again. Then I don't know what they're really talking about, the guns. What it is really that story is about, I don't know, about legal firearms. What other plan do you have? What is your plan? You have absolutely none. No, don't forget the public health emergency. So each time people rile up a little bit, they run out and drop some foolishness on the table to say that's what they're going to. It's not going to work. The only thing will work is to dissolve the parliament and call the elections now. That's the only thing that will work. So I ask you to hold firm, look out for each other. We work together to rebuild and restore our country. Their days are numbered, I'm telling you. Politically numbered. Don't worry. The sun will rise again, and we'll chase the blight that is the PNM off the face of the map. May God bless you, and I thank you very much.
So who feel the black? Who feel the white? I don't know. But it's set till tomorrow night. Who feel the wrong? Who feel the right? Come and go. And all who feel the too bright. Let me jump up. Let me wind up. Party non-stop. Ramajo bingo like we come to play mass. Every creed and class. Don't learn any pass. Like a ready TV on the level side away. Uptown and ghetto. Feeling the tempo. So current tight so. It's party day like so. Soon as we land, fun is the plan. We like the jam, like the man bam. Waving the hand inside the band, we inside the band. And if you cut me, you go see blood. And if you squeeze me, you go feel the love. We are